Grab your recycling bins, Wargamers. Today we're undeleting the opening few minutes of this video, which in his not-so-infinite wisdom, Mr. Wargaming deleted. They call me Mr. Wargaming, not Mr. Computers. So I already have an idea where we're going here, but I wanted to walk you through the process one more time. You're just going to have to trust me that this was all done organically. We are talking about the second solo wargame campaign that we presented here at the Joy of Wargaming, and we are having the time of our lives shoving imaginary armies across this imaginary land. And the first battle that we have discovered is going to take place on February 12th. I think I said March a few times in the last video. Oops. I don't know why I got hung up on 3. It's definitely February. This battle down south that's going to be fought on the southern coast is going to be fought on Valentine's Day. This battle up here is going to be fought on the 12th, and it's going to be fought just northeast of Grande Point. We've got a large 77 AP army that is trying to conquer Grande Point, and they're being met by a defensive army headed south. Half of this army had a long, hard march. Half of it is well rested. These guys had a nice, easy march. And what I did, now bear in mind, as we move these imaginary armies around, I am keeping track of essentially the headquarters of that army, the bulk of the troops. We have not drilled down to the scale of individual units. We are abstracting a wealth of fine details. They may come up. We may use exemptions to those abstractions to explain oddities. But for the sake of minimizing the paperwork, and we already have a lot of paperwork. We have enough, thank you very much. We're not worried so much about things like outriders and scouts ahead and flankers and all of that. They're there, they're happening. So when we have a situation where you've got one army marching south and one army marching west, and they're going to meet somewhere in here, bear in mind, this army, let me put an arrow here for the Tenebran army, is looking to defend Grande Point from the invaders. They want to meet the invaders before they get to Grande Point. So what's going to happen is, as on 210, they're basically here and here. The Tenebrans are here, and the Albans are here. The Tenebrans are going to start veering off. They're going to sheer away from the road to catch these guys, and the general here is no slouch. General Lackey is going to look for the most favorable terrain that he can find. Of course, the enemy gets a vote, and the enemy is going to start as their outriders come into contact, as the cavalry scouts meet cavalry scouts and are reporting back. There's going to be a lot of jockeying for position. So they're not necessarily going to meet north side, west side when we kick it down to the tabletop level. Generally, these guys are going to be more north and west, and these guys are going to be more east, but they may actually meet each other at more of an oblique angle, or it may be that the battlefield is shifted 2 miles north. Again, remember our scale here is 1 inch equals 20 miles. So when you talk about a 1 square inch piece of terrain around Grande Point, this is 400 square miles, and these armies could meet anywhere in there. Which means, while you might be tempted to say, well, there's a road running east-west here, so we have to have a road running from west to east on the tabletop. Au contraire, mon YouTube frère. Maybe you do and maybe you don't. There's nothing that says they have to meet directly along this road. Grande Point is a sizable town, so there's going to be lots of scattered villages around here. Remember, E is just a village big enough to support 750 soldiers. Call it 20% of the population. That means E is still a town that is somewhere in the order of 4,000 to 5,000 souls. If 1 out of 10 is of soldiering age, this is a 7,500 soul village. There's a lot of villages that are going to be significantly smaller than that, and they may wind up fighting. So let's, with all of that in mind now, we're going to zoom way out to the bird's eye view, and we're going to use the Solo Wargaming Guide to determine what our individual battlefield looks like. And the deal that I had on my late lamented and foolishly deleted video looks a little something like this. The Joker is a special. The black. Now, the black cards represent terrain features. All of the red cards represent nothing, just open grassland. And Mr. Sylvester gives us a lovely little chart here that helps us understand that on an ace 2 or 3, you've got a hill. Again, only on the black cards. On a 4, 5, or a 6, you've got a heavy woods, so heavy woods here. On a 7, 8, 9, you've got a light woods. We've got a light woods down here in the southern corner. A 10 is going to be marsh. The jack is a farmland, and that's everything. So if we sketch that out, you get something that looks a little bit like this. And I am just going to go ahead and cut right to the chase here. So the special is going to be a pond or a lake. At this scale, we're looking at 1 inch equals 100 yards. So, you know, even if this is a 1 by 1 inch, 100 yards is a pretty big pond. If we're going to make it 3 inches across, we're looking at 300 yards, 1,000 feet across. Now we're looking at a proper lake. And we're going to give this lake a name. We're going to name it Lake Samby. Now, Sam, capital B, is a frequent commenter on the channel. And I like to thank my commenters by naming personalities and key features after them. You'll remember in the first solo campaign, the Battle of Silcock Farm. Carl Silcock is a regular here. Now we've got the Battle of Lake Samby. And I've already gone through the process of cleaning up this map and figuring out who all's meeting where, what, when, and how. Here's what the map looks like at the end. But before we get to that, why don't I go ahead and just do like a really smooth and cool segue to wallpaper over the gaps. This is a much cleaned up map. February 12th, I think I mentioned like March 12th a few times. For some reason, I got very confused on the month. It's February 12th, and the two armies are going to meet for battle. And we don't actually know who's going to appear where. One of the things I had to go back and research is my house rules for how to turn this campaigning guide. How am I going to marry that with this tabletop battle guide? And I've already gone through this. I've already answered a lot of these questions. Those of you that saw the first Elopation More series will understand that one of the things we do is we roll a d6 and we add the commander's command, what is it, CCR, the command capability competence rating, and whoever gets high gets to pick the battle set. So we need to do that. The Tenebran General, General Lackey's got a CCR of 6. So we roll this and he gets a 10, which means he's going to get to pick the side. His counterpart, General Meltzer, only has a CCR of 2. So he is going to roll, and whenever he gets, it's a 5. So he doesn't get to choose. General Lackey gets to choose. And of course, General Lackey is going to choose this side. He is on the defense after all. So we'll make a note of that here. That means the Albi really are attacking from here. And the Tenebrans, who entice them to battle, are going to start on this side. Tenebra. And they're coming from somewhere up here. Specifically, they're probably going to come in from right here is going to be their main point. The Albans, but we'll get to that in a second. The other thing we need to talk about, the difference is that this rule set says start with 10 AP and then on the board, and then you go from there. And then everybody else is waiting off board to load up on. The problem with that is, again, this is a game that assumes a 40 AP roster. We've got a lot more than that in the case of the Albans. We also need to understand what it means to take the field of battle. Instead of 10 AP worth of troops, our armies are going to start with a quarter of the available AP. So let's take a look at what that means. In the case of the Albans, they've got, and I went through and I revised this, I re-tallied up, I rewrote. So this is all of the forces available to General Meltzer. He's got 76 AP. Oh, by the way, this is also +2 headquarters. And this is +2 headquarters, who are not factored into the point cost yet. So technically, I guess you could say this is 67 versus 84. Regardless, what that means is we're going to start with 20 AP of these guys on the table, and then 1/4 of 60 is going to be 15. Why don't we go ahead and just say 15 and 20, but with a single HQ. The defender puts 1/4 of his AP, and that is going to be 15 AP plus 1 HQ within 6 inches of the board edge. 15 AP is going to be enough for us to bring up 3 specialty units. So we're going to bring up a gun, by which I mean artillery, and an artillery, and then we're going to drop 3 infantry in between. That's 3, 6, 15. And then we're going to go ahead and put a light infantry, and I'm going to mark that with an L, right here. Our headquarters is, of course, going to go right here. And there you have it. That's the start of the Tenebrans. Then the defenders put 1/4 of their forces down. Looking at the Tenebrans, and we now have a grand total of 19 AP. Obviously, the only way that the Albans are going to be able to come to grips with the Tenebrans is over this hill. The woods and the marsh are non-passable to anyone except for the light infantry. Actually, there's no accounting for marsh in these rules. I think what we'll do is we'll say the marsh reduces all movement to half movement. So it slows down but does not completely end anybody's move. And the fact that you're going to be subjected to a lot more cannon fire than usual makes it a bit suicidal. This is maybe the safer route. Maybe the marsh. We'll have to see how it plays out when we get to the tabletop. For now, the tactical consideration is that General Meltzer is going to send 2 units of grenadiers up the middle. To secure his flanks, he's put a couple batteries of artillery here to move into the farm. The farm can only hold 2 units. So they don't get flanked. We've got a unit of infantry over here, and then we have the same thing over here to guard this approach to behind the lines. We've got an artillery and a single unit of infantry. That represents 19 AP. The guns, 1, 2, 3, and the grenadiers are worth 3 points apiece, so that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And we'll go ahead and drop our first headquarters right here. The H is going to be our HQ. Now, each side has 2 headquarters. The other one's going to come on as a reinforcement. For the Tenebrans, now that is the initial setup. The rest of the units in both forces are either still getting out of bed and still marching to battle. Remember, we're talking about something on the order of 10,000 men on each side. I haven't run the numbers, but it winds up, well, the bigger army, let's be conservative, the smaller army has 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, has got 13 units, so that's 7,500 plus another 9. That's 10,000 men on foot, another 3,000 cavalry, and 600 men manning the guns. So, fairly small by the standards of Napoleonic armies, but that's a lot of people to have to camp out, get up, move around. It's going to take some time. The next step is to look at the defender, who picks a reinforcement point anywhere on his defending edge of the board and places reinforcements in the order of appearance. So we're obviously going to go ahead and say, look, I want to bring this secondary HQ on first. Then we have to pick, now in the rules it states just reinforcements. Half your reinforcements have to come on here. The other half are going to come on your secondary point. General Lackey is going to take a fairly conservative approach. He wants to get as many bodies up on this hill as possible, so He's going to focus on bringing these reinforcements in first. First things first, he's going to bring in some grenadiers, 3 units of infantry, 2 light cavalry, and 1 more infantry. Which means we now turn our attention to the attacker, who then picks a reinforcement point anywhere on his edge of the board or anywhere on each flank. Okay. Well, he's going to pick right here. I probably shouldn't have covered this up. The road is going to give him maximum flexibility. And more importantly, it's going to give him an opportunity to bring his troops in faster. When you reinforce by a road, it gives you an increased chance. So there's our HQ coming in first, and he's got a lot of boys to bring in, so he does not want to wait any longer than necessary. And we're still pretty thin in the front here, so we're going to go ahead, and I think his overall strategy is going to be to take his time, bring his units in, and not make a move until he's got overwhelming force available. He's got a total of 8 infantry available, just regular line infantry. So since he's already got grenadiers holding the center and cannon that are holding his flanks, let's stipulate that he's going to go ahead and bring in 5 of his infantry, straight up infantry. That means that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, he's only going to have 1 more. And the rest of these are going to be a mix of horse, foot, and guns. So the bulk of his infantry can take advantage of this road to line up and then send overwhelming force this way. Since he has a total of 24 units, and we've only placed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we're only halfway there. We're going to put another 5 units here. And once we bring on these, I probably should have done this a little differently. Once we bring on this many line infantry, it's going to be time to bring on some... Oh, what do we have? We don't have any light infantry, so that helps. We've already used our grenadier. We've got 2 more grenadier units, but I think we bring those in the flanks. So, that being the case, we don't have any heavy cavalry. So the heavy cavalry is going to be used to chase off the light. Let's go ahead and bring in the light cavalry next. We've got 3 of those, but let's bring 1 on, and that's a light cavalry. And then over here to continue, maybe we send 1 more unit down here. I think, let's see, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I think the deal is we've got 8 guns that we can bring on. We'll bring up 2 of these guns over here. And then there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 more guns that we can bring up. We'll bring up 1 more. There you go. There's 8. So there's 13. No, 2, 4, 6, 7. There's 16 of our 24. We have 8 more. But it's time for the defenders now to figure out where their flank is going to come from. Our limitations here are that we cannot come in within 6 inches of a reinforcement point or one of the enemy units, which means we're basically stuck with about here, and then probably 6 inches is right about there. So anywhere on this flank or this flank. But flank reserves are much less likely to come on. So if we put our secondary reserve point back here, it's going to force us to come over the hill to get at them. So that's the balance that you have to worry about here. I'm a little nervous about this marsh not being as protective as General Lackey believes. So I am inclined to put the Tenebran Reserve. The other thing is you got to think about it defensively. If he comes on here, then that precludes any more reinforcements from... So here's the choice. If you put your reserve point here, there's no reinforcements coming on this side of the farm. They've got to come in from behind. On the other hand, if you put it here, there's no more reserves. They're going to have to come in from this side. So it's a question of whether you want to box out here or box out here. And like I said, I think we want to box out here, force them to come through here, And that means that if we reinforce right up here near the midpoint, we can start with somebody tough, and that means our last unit of grenadiers taking the field right here. So we're going to put a little H next to it so we know who that is. Then we can start bringing on our cavalry. I'm going to go ahead and bring on our last 2 units of infantry first, however. And then we're going to bring on our heavy... See, we only have one light cavalry appearing so far, so we're probably going to see a lot of cavalry there. I take it back. That being the case, if we expect a lot of cavalry showing up, we're going to put our 2 heavy cavalry units here first. And then we'll bring on those last 2 units of infantry, followed finally by that last unit of... Oh, how many do we have? We have actually 2 more units of dragoons. So 2... Oh, why did I make the wrong symbol there? There. And there. Okay. So that's it. That's it for the Tenebrans. They should have a total of 21 units drawn. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Who did I miss? We should have 2 heavy cav. We got our 2 guns. We should have 4 light cavalry. We should have 2 grenadiers, and then we should have 9 infantry. And I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, there's the problem. There are 10 units of infantry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, there's 9. There's 2. Oh, the light infantry. I have 1 more unit of light infantry that I think we're actually going to bring on here. And then we'll bring on bring up the rear with 1 more unit. That was the problem. So I got 1 unit of light infantry that can run down and take up position in the light woods, I guess. So there's all of our forces when they're coming on for the Tenebrans, and then we need to do the same thing for the Albans. And for the Albans, yeah, the beauty of this is knowing that all of these guys are coming from this side of the battlefield, we can go ahead and stake a claim to this reinforcement point here for General Lackey. And the forces that he has available to reinforce here are 1 unit of infantry, 3 unit of grenadiers, 2 light cavalry, and 2 guns. Who do we want to bring on, and in what order? I think we want to go ahead and bring on the grenadiers to secure the ground. We'll bring in another unit of cannon. Mark those off so I don't forget. And then we'll bring on the last 2 units of grenadiers. And now it's time to start bringing in those last couple of units of dragoons. So the light cavalry next. Then we're going to bring in that last bit of infantry. And then we have 1 more gun who probably won't even take the field of battle. So that's going to be 8, 8, and 2, 4, 6, 7. I've lost somebody again. I'm missing 1 unit of grenadiers. That's these guys here. We'll turn this into regular infantry, and then we'll drop that last gun there. I know this seems like an awful lot of batteries of guns. Remember that this invasion force was intending to lay siege to Grand Point, hence the long trail of cannons. And they're going to want to preserve some of these cannons. If they win this battle, they're going to need those for knocking down the walls of the town. And the results of this battle are going to play into effect when we play out that siege of Grand Point, assuming that the Albans win. Of course, if the Albans lose, they're going to have to head back for home with their tails tucked between their legs. Each of these units has a specific name. I haven't designated them yet. I'm just going to go in order, but you can see on the part of General Meltzer, he's got these are the 8 infantry that he has available to him, to his command. So Bridgeacre, Cliff Frost, Fairhold, and I'll actually designate Meltzer as this guy. These might be the Cliff Frost Grenadiers. Over here, these might be the Steelhold Grenadiers, and I'll go through and just give these each names. Right now, they're all the same. But once they take injuries, once they take casualties, then we're going to have to keep track of which of these guys is available for which battle. And I kind of want to know, you know, the way the dice work out. Sometimes, some of these guys, maybe these guys come on late, and they're the ones that hold the entire battle together, and they deserve some sort of honor. And maybe they do that over the course of 2 or 3 battles. It happens. If we have a regular infantry that shows incredible resilience, I may bump them up to Grenadiers. This is how units in the real world, you've got heavy cavalry that are called dragoons, even though they don't behave as dragoons. We've been called the dragoons for 50 years. I don't care if you change our mission. We're the king's dragoons. So they stay the dragoons and everything gets really complicated. Too complicated for a Napoleonic neophyte like myself to keep track of. That's why I don't do the big battle Napoleonics just yet. But I'll tell you what's not too complicated. This and this is not too complicated. This hits the sweet spot for me. This level of detail is perfect, and we are going to have a ball when we throw these miniatures down and actually do a miniature war game on the Joy of Wargaming channel. Although, to be honest, we call this the Joy of Wargaming, not the Joy of Miniature Wargaming. So if we spend 3 or 4 episodes going over a war game campaign that doesn't involve anything more miniature than these little dice here, it's not false advertising. This is just what it says on the tin. Hey, you know, the other thing we could probably do here is take a look at the strategic map, and I think we probably have enough time to take a look at the lay of the land of the other very important battle that needs to be fought here in this Southern War. If we go back to our notes, and I cleaned it up a little bit, took out the January information and dumped on the February. Here we are right on the border, dealing with the Battle of Lake Samby over here at Grand Point. The White Queen is hoping to take Grand Point back from the perfidious Tenebrans. But we got another complicated situation where the White Queen has landed her army on the road to Mudbourne. The Tenebrans had an army that they intended to threaten her southern flank with, and they got a little nervous and skittish, and they landed at Whalegate. Unloaded the ships, and one of the things I didn't think about in the last episode is it's a lot faster to unload ships at a harbor than it is on the beach. So these guys are much, even though but on the other hand, these guys are fresh off the boat. These guys had to spend a day or 2 marching to get to battle. So we're going to call that a wash. The important thing is that we're going to designate the Albans as the attacker here. And we're going to do that because they have a smaller navy, 4 ships of the line to 6 ships of the line. Their supply chain is at serious risk because of that disparate size of the navies. These guys are very rapidly going to go out of supply if they can't take Whalegate. And controlling that, making sure you've got that line of supply back, opens up some strategic possibilities down the line. If we had a slightly more complicated map, a more crowded map, that could come into play a little more. These guys up here could march down and cut off the supplies at Fairhold, choking the invaders down here. This army could have marched overland to do the same thing, cut off the supplies to effect this attack on Grand Point. Keeping track of those supply chains drives an awful lot of generalship. So it drives the generalship here. Hey, we've got you cut off. All you have is a trickle of supplies from the Navy, which means Albi now has to turn around. Instead of taking Mudbourne, they're essentially attacking Whalegate from the west. Kind of an odd situation, but this is warfare. Odd situations are the norm. The strategic situation down here also indicates that the Albans are going to be a highly motivated force. They do not have a line of retreat. They are fighting their way back home. We also know that our battle is going to take place somewhere along the coast. How far inland? I'm not sure. I want to lay out the cards. Again, we're going to use our tactical map. And all I know for sure... I should also point out, the ground scale is 1 inch equals 100 yards. So our battlefield, 24 inches across, is a half a mile across. That means that you could be a mile in from the coast, and you wouldn't see that represented on the battlefield. In fact, it's unlikely that you would have a flank secured by the coast unless the general wanted that to be the case. I don't know how rocky the coast is here. We've got a marsh right through here, so it's probably pretty swampy. They probably landed on the last available beach. I'm envisioning a kind of line of hills that forces the water to drain out this way. So the point being that the easy temptation is to say, hey, the coast is right here on the southern end of the battle. We're not going to give in to that temptation. If the cards reveal it, that may be the case. But until the powers of chance and the muses have dictated to us what the actual tactical map is like, we're not going to make any decisions. So let's go ahead and deal these out. Like so, as usual, we're going to deal out a 4x4 grid, and the red cards are going to be open land, and the black cards are going to be features of one sort or another. Hey, we got a joker down here. Okay. So that joker is a wild card, and that may mean that our coast cuts in. I kind of like that idea. It turns out there's a bit of a bay, right? So if we cut our battlefield in 16ths, like so, that means we've got the coast here. This is the open sea. Oh, and I really like that because we're going to be able to put our lighthouse. In fact, that may be the feature that gives this battle its name. We'll find a viewer to name this lighthouse after. We'll mark it on the map. I shouldn't say viewer. A lot of you people watch this. Not a lot of you comment. So the ones that comment have a chance of getting their name on here, or at least the ones that commented last month when I sat down to put all this math together. The other thing we're going to arbitrarily declare is that since we are so close to the sea, this little bay, there is a very good chance that there's a coast road. And I'm going to roll once for this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. On a 5 or 6, there's no road. I'm going to roll on this side. 1, 2, 3. And on a 4, 5, or 6, there's no road. So first over here, we got a road coming at 3. And over here, we've got a road at 3. So very simple. Our road is just going to cut right across the battlefield like that. Wait a minute. What is that jack? That jack is a farm. Okay, great. So we got a farm right here. In fact, we might go ahead and push that farm to the southern edge, and we'll call that a little fishing village. Oh, that'd be great. Let's do that. Because I have some villages that I haven't used yet. So we're going to put a little fishing village right here that helps to serve the lighthouse as well. Or at least that's where the lighthouse keeper lives. In the other corner, we've got a 4, so we've got heavy woods over here. We've got, and then that's it for the southern half of the battlefield. Up here, we've got a 3 and a jack. So that jack is another village, and the 3 is a hill. So we've got a hill. We've got a village up here. And I think we can be reasonably expected to connect those. The ace is another hill. And the 8 is a light wood. So I'm actually going to go ahead and, since it's a light wood, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these villages with a road. So we have our first crossroad of the game too. And then these light woods split through that farm. And we got a hill here and a hill here. And now we've got an interesting battle to work out. And we already know which side of the battlefield the Albans are coming from. The Albans are coming from here. And interestingly enough, the Tenebrans are attacking from east to west into their own country. As far as reinforcement points are concerned, I'm going to leave it wide. Well, let's think about this. The Tenebrans are precluded from putting reinforcement points on this side of the battle, which is going to play into the Albans' hands because they know what to expect. The take-home lesson. I'm not going to go through all the units on this one. This video is running long already, and frankly, this battle doesn't take place until the 14th. It's the Valentine's Day Massacre. We should probably call this the Valentine's Lighthouse. And we don't know if it's a massacre yet. You got to play the game to know what to call the battle, don't you? The take-home message is that we could have simply thrown down 40 army points and played a reasonably entertaining battle of 2x2 Napoleonics. But by spending several hours building a map, laying out the forces, marching the forces to war, letting the dice be our guides, these two navies just missed each other by a matter of hours. This commander lost his nerve and said, I don't trust our navy. These guys blindly and mistakenly landed before they got word that there's a whole army headed this way. This is an organic process. This is creating a very interesting situation, particularly given that, once again, the Tenebrans are outnumbered. They have 40 AP to the Alban 60 AP. So we may wind up giving them just a single HQ. We may give these guys a single HQ, which will make them even more unwieldy because they've got one headquarters trying to manage, well, we can actually count. How many stands is it? Normally they would only be managing 15 stands, but given the results of our planning here, if we cut back to our notes, that's going to be the Alban South. And who's commanding that? The Semperatus, that's the reserve. The Alban Northern, that's not. Okay, so the Alban South is going to be composed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 stands. 18 stands is a lot for one general. We may have to give him a second. I'm not sure. On the other hand, they're going up against a group that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Only 16. Oh, because there's a lot more infantry. So a lot more specialized troops here. Yeah, that's the Tenebran South. General Typhonus has 18 units. Kind of high. No, he has, that's about what you'd expect. Why is it? I'll be darned. At any rate, this is going to provide for much more interest. In fact, General Typhonus might take an attitude of trying to preserve as much of his force as possible. Interestingly, General Typhonus has opted to reduce his frontage, which is going to reduce the power of the extra numbers on the side of the Albans. He's outnumbered 2 to 3, but he only has to defend a lot less. And he's got a village that he can secure. If he can snap up into this area, he's got a fairly defensible line here. So a lot of possibilities here. This battle is going to be very interesting. We are at least 2 episodes away, though, because we have to fight the Battle of Lake Sambi, and then we also have to figure out the aftermath of the Battle of Lake Sambi. And then we can turn our attention back down here. So take a look, keep an eye out for that in the next week or so, and until we fight those battles, remember, I'm praying for you.